Okay, so I work at Niko, and our company focuses on sustainable digital development. And by development, I always mean design and developer development. So don't forget that. We're entering age of open source design. This is something new that we haven't really seen in this digital form before. It's something that is very easy to understand if you're a coder. You've been using something like GitHub for a long time. But now with design systems, we're offering design assets openly for everyone, and everyone's doing it. Any organization dealing with digital content seems to come up with their own design systems and kind of building their identity in that way. And because of these emergent markets that we are dealing with, we have to be more systematic in our design to keep up with the pace. Okay, so my journey, why am I here? I started developing and secretly designing at the same time. This means that people thought I was a coder because designers were the thing that small companies could afford. So they just bought me to do stuff. My thing first was to create style guides and pattern libraries. And the idea of them was to communicate the ideas that I had that I didn't implement into code yet. So it's purely communicational. And this opened up a lot of discussion with clients like, how do we do this? And it improved the product before I actually made it. And in the end, I always ended up with a style guide, a living style guide thing that I could use for further development if that happened, if the client wanted me back. But then I moved on to working with teams. And the interesting thing is that I needed a common language to discuss things that I wanted to develop with others. So it wasn't about me anymore, it was about other people. And to be on the same page, you need something to look at, something common. But yeah, what happened then is that we got multiple teams. We got plenty of people, bigger organizations. And I just didn't know what to do. So scaling design became a new problem that I didn't know how to solve. And basically, finally, I discussed with managers about aligning the whole organization with the design system. And that was the solution I started pondering about. At that point, there wasn't many design systems open, so honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. But my key findings from those early days were the common language. I was able to communicate effortlessly with stakeholders, everything that I thought about the product itself, and really to build this kind of communication with anyone in the organization. And related to this is the context. It was hard to build a language if I didn't know the context. So to collaborate, I needed to know more about the whole thing besides the product to really establish this. But still, god damn it, I put a lot of effort into doing that stuff, but still it always died out. And I felt like this, you can see I literally look like that during these projects. Because I have worked on really good stuff that was really usable, but still no one was using it. So something needed to be changed in order to get any lifespan from these design systems. Okay, so this is a funny thing, past 2 years, everyone's quoted Nathan, so I'm gonna do it. But that's the reason Nathan is awesome. Yeah. So I learned so much from him during these past 3 years that it's amazing. But something in this quote I really picked out, and it was product. So I was actually dealing with a product, whether I openly acknowledge that. But if I'm dealing with a product, then I should focus on improving that product so it didn't die out. It got me forward in thinking about good product design. So it's actually a product serving products. How do I improve this product so that it stays alive? And here's some really good pointers. I think most of you know this triangle because it's the foundation of how we work with products. And the viability was the thing that I really needed to focus on. But the central question remained, how can I keep my design system alive? And at our company, we established some sustainable principles. These were general in sense, and they weren't considered to be anything that would limit us. It was just something that naturally, organically grew from us, and it became a guideline how we thought about sustainability in general. Because if you think about building products, you're not thinking about sustainability, you're thinking about the product itself. So these are things that take time to discover. But this is only a mindset, so I'm not really going to focus on this. But to get the full benefit from these principles, we basically need to incorporate our design systems into the organization. So it needs to be part of the culture. So how do we fit this product serving products? The question. Let's consider this thing through design thinking, because that's trendy, right? So you need to do that. So organizations can be considered as design thinking organisms. And essentially, design thinking was developed by IDEO. And now it has evolved into circular design, which I think as a name describes it better. What that means is that we acknowledge that eventually design will always continue. It's never done. So we need to create our organizations in a way that support this sustainable mindset. Basically, we're setting up our products to fail if we don't consider these things. So, to simply put it, we incorporate our design system into our entire organizational flow. And it becomes a meeting point for strategy and tactics. An organizational culture of intertwined phases without handovers. And with this, we're fighting silos and waterfalls of the past. But the reality means that we have lots of clients and environments and organizations that still want to do this. So let's focus on improving our organizations instead of trying to fake it. Okay, by nature, the common language for building products in our organizations. And by this mean these things. We are promoting collaboration, we're promoting unity and flow. Unity was something that was already mentioned in the previous talk, and it's quite obvious. Collaboration is something that we probably, most of us, do all the time. But what does flow mean? Well, flow means different things to different people. It can mean revenue, it can mean new business, it can mean velocity. It depends. Okay, with flow, you focus on providing value to the customer so that the customer feedback essentially completes the circle of value. So like I mentioned, circle design. We're building organizations that kind of never stop evolving. So this mindset is something that will keep us going on. This kind of organization have the capability to innovate and in some cases disrupt the known world. But that's very hard to predict. So if you're aiming for disruptive, I think you're wasting your time to some extent. I'm not saying completely, because I don't want to ruin your future. Okay, it's totally healthy to ask this question. I think it's the most important question, because we need to start from something. I get a lot of questions asking me this, like, do I need a design system? Oh yeah, I'm a consultant. You can buy me in to do stuff and we can hook you up. But I don't really want to do that, because I know that what would happen is that it would die out. And that's not sustainable. And we're working on sustainable digital development, so we also have that ethical side. If you don't need to scale, if you don't need to build alignment, if you're a really small company, then it might be a difficulty and kind of create some overhead that will just eventually ruin you. Okay, as with any endeavor, design systems are not without risks. Stuff can happen. But if we look at these pitfalls, then we might know that we can prevent these. It's a long list. I'm not going to go through it, but I leave connecting the points to you. Okay, people first. Start with the most important thing, and that's always people. In digital development, I think like a lot of us don't really think about people because we're so enthusiastic, so passionate about the product itself, so we get sucked into it. But when we work on those products, it's way easier if we have an organization that supports that work. I'm very too lucky in this sense. I have an organization that sets these good goals and supports me. So I want to share this with everyone and kind of like put out the word that change your organization so you can freely work. Design systems are the platform where everyone can be part of aligning the organization. Empowering people to collaborate. Feeling left out is the worst feeling for a human. That's why we put people into prisons, because they're taken away from other people. At best, design systems are platforms for people working together. So it's all about people. It doesn't really matter what the implementation is. Direct communication is also something. If you know about lean principles, for example, then you can know that direct communication, talking with people, is the most efficient way to communicate. Okay. Build incrementally and iterate. So, this was guessed. Yeah, I'm basically a lean agile consultant. I'm not going to sell anything of this that I'm saying. But the thing is that I've seen this in action and it kind of works. So I suggest trying it out. If you go for like 2 month stuff, then you can always kind of slow down and try to kind of break it down. That comes from my part. I go too fast often. Work to include everyone as equals. Prove to all the roles that everyone can benefit from design system. Traditionally, strongly siloed organizations easily feel that they are losing power. So, the siloed organizations is something that really happens all the time. Transparency might feel intimidating, but is the most relieving and efficient way of operating. Yeah. Transparency is probably the biggest thing in recent years that I experienced in organizations that have changed the entire organization. Yeah. Okay. I was supposed to show that earlier. I messed up, sorry. Okay, don't aim for all at once. That's the point of this. So a lot of companies come to me and say like, could you do a design system? No, because if I do a design system, I'll create something that will not be used, will not be bought in, will not be further development in the sense that I would prefer it to have a sustainable life, or in order to have a sustainable life. Building a design system should be incremental and also iterative. So you're putting something to use piece by piece. It's not something that you invest in, you buy the big lot, and then you're happy for the rest of your life. It just doesn't happen that way. So in order to have life, we always need to like maybe deprecate something and put a small piece back in. Yeah, focus on outcomes, not maintenance. For those who know Lean UX, this is the way that it actually works. Is that we're overcome by the process and then we forget what we're actually supposed to be doing. We're not creating any value, we're just maintaining things. And often they get into very static, especially in scenarios where organizations are really large or you're working with large teams. So, facilitate people's efforts towards the organization's goals. Good organizations have a mission. Mission is something very broad, and they just focus on that mission, break it down into goals, and break it down for teams to outcomes. And those teams focus on those outcomes. So that's a lot better way of working than just dying out. We need more design doing. Yeah, that's what Donald Norman said. Design systems were never meant to be just a tool, but an addition that should be resourced and supported. Does this actually sound any familiar? Because this doesn't really happen. Like most of the design systems in the world are not supported. They're bought. It's like a product that is just thought it would be the magical cure. Whenever everyone in the organization stops evolving the design system, it always dies out. And this usually eventually happens because the organization is just not supporting it. Continuous improvement through thoughtful criticism leads to sustainability. Don't be a bystander when something fails, because something will fail eventually, always. Okay, experimentation. What is experimentation? It's something. Designers and developers argue that design systems limit their creativity. If you heard my journey, you'd understand that I was the one that actually started doing design systems secretly without telling anyone. So I hope that will innovate you to consider design systems in a new perspective. It's the single source of truth, but still can be many perspectives to that truth without any clashes. Like Jonathan Ive said, it's very easy to be different, but very difficult to be better. I think that kind of sums up the idea. You can do different kind of iterations and work on the entire repertoire of your components, but is it really improving the product? So if I want to do a different color, is that a new component? I've seen this done. And some say like, yeah, of course, because it's very different. But you have to consider that. Design systems make decision making easier. So you can really focus on the big picture and eventually just improve the user experience. And this is what really drives companies, the better user experience. Your customers buy in, and then you get a value stream going. This is really related to circular design, where you're making the customers so happy that they fund you by giving you money back. Always prioritize focus on the product itself and not the means to get there. So design systems are a helper. Some consider that it's the product itself. I use a metaphor as a product, but it's not something that you really sell to anyone. So you have to understand the character to really get the most benefit from it. Okay, and here's a list of stuff we've discovered throughout the years. And I hope we will help you set on the right path, because if I would have known these things when I started, it would have been a hell of a lot easier. So consider these. Thank you.